Still don't have that J cut thing down where the music slides on. Anyway, how's everybody doing? Afternoon, everybody. Victor's here. We can start. Aloha, Victor. If Hawaii is in the house, we're good. I want to remind everybody that today 5 Watt Live is brought to you with the support of the Friends of 5 Watt on Patreon. I'll talk a little bit more about 5 Watt World and 5 Watt Live and the Friends of 5 Watt at the midpoint. I want to thank everybody. I noticed there were a lot of comments. I think they were probably posted prior to the live stream starting today or the chat being opened. I want to thank everybody for showing up. I didn't mean to be provocative. I actually was quoting a video that I watched 3 years ago by MKBHD, who is a amazing tech YouTuber. I don't need to recommend him. He has 17 million subscribers. I think you probably do okay without me. But I recently had a message from a friend of 5 Watt, and I read all the comments, I read all the messages and respond to all the messages and emails. That's me. When people write in, they're like, I want to thank everybody. If they're not talking about Perry, who's in the chat, they're writing to me, and I always kind of look over my shoulder as if the rest of the staff is back there. It's me. But I have this slide. I'm actually going to share the slide, though I'm not going to share his name, obviously. And he kind of implied, I'll put it up and then I'll keep talking here. He's basically talking about how I always really enjoyed my 390s, my Gibson ES 390s, and they were exactly, what I needed at that time. And I enjoyed those guitars. I bought the first one in 2013, so 10 years. And the second one I just bought a couple years ago. And in a way, the second one with the P90s kind of led me in this direction. But he sort of implied that I'd gone over to Collings. And you guys tell me if you think I'm overreacting from what was written here. But it just felt like I needed to respond. And I did respond to him. And I basically am going to talk a little bit more about that. But as I thought more about it, and I rewatched MKBHD's video, like I said, from 3 years ago, I thought, I could probably talk about how I do this and how I decide who to trust and how I handle it on my channel, for full. Yeah, Phil says that 60 cycle hum used Can You Trust the other day. It was really close to when I put mine up. I'm not saying I don't know him actually. We have friends in common. Anyway, so I want to talk about that. I do not have a relationship with Collings. I bought all those guitars. If you watch the live stream where I talked about how I even said how much I spent on them, there was sort of money at the level of Gibson Custom Shop. So you can decide if that's very expensive, which is what the friend here said. So that's what we're going to do today. BB Ninja is here, as you can see in the chat, moderator to the stars and to me. Watch for his answers in the questions. Mine are obvious. Perry is here as well, my script editor. Though Perry and I, mostly because I haven't been on schedule. Perry and I haven't been able to do a script in a while. And if there was any script, I got some help on the Strat script because Perry is a Strat guy. And I trust Perry. He's an excellent friend and writer. Music in the intro, I always tell us that was actually Jeff McElwain playing a 1984 made in Japan Stratocaster. It's right over there because I haven't repacked it to send back to Mike and Mike's Guitar Bar in Seattle, who I'm actually collaborating with on this video that's coming up on Fender Japan. And it's looking like it might be shorter than a typical short history video
And I'm pulling it together to try to get the narrative together. I'm excited to do it. It's something I've been interested in a long time because back in the 90s, I've owned a few Fender Japan guitars. As always, I encourage the group hang. There was a flurry of questions about why I asked you to put at 5 Watt World in the beginning. I see those in the pop-out chat over in YouTube Studio, which is how a creator works with it, in bright orange. So it's really easy for me to see when you're asking me a specific question. Although I do see questions when they pop out. Joe Carraro. Sorry, Joe. He says, can you trust someone's opinion? We're going to touch on that. And again, like I said, if you want to talk among yourselves, I encourage that. I am thinking of doing, I'm going to put this out here. I'm going to go to Rick Beato's last live show in New York. And I'm going to be in the city. That's Jeff. Yes, it was me. It was Jeff. I don't know what you did, but you're scaring me. Anyway, I'm going to see my good friend Jeff and others, but we're talking about doing a live hang the first night that we get down there. That's October 16th. The show with Rick is on the 17th. So if you're interested in doing something like that, I don't know where we do it. Probably I'm staying near the Gramercy Theater in Manhattan, right near. Actually, Rick is comping my room because he really wanted me to come, and I was very touched that he did that. He's a good old friend. So if you're interested in that, reach out to me. Let me know. I'm trying to get a sense of that. I know Rick did this when his channel was little, like mine. And he literally was at a bar in Manhattan and put something up on Instagram that he was there, and come on down, and about 30 people showed up, which I thought was very cool that you'd actually get to meet each other. I don't really see the wedding line, lining up to meet me. I got a bug in here. I feel like it's like that pedal show, that their place is out on a farm. That's Mick. He's always obsessing about it. Okay. So as I said, a few years ago, MKBHD did a video. It looks like this. That's the thumbnail. I highly recommend this video. He does a great job of talking about how this works in the tech space. And he actually does reviews. Kiss Chicken says, Colling's great, but yeah, who makes your denim shirts? I do not have a deal with Levi's. And I have never written to them. Although I did write to another brand and they totally ignored me. They had no idea what they wanted. Anyway, MKBHD did this video, and there was a little flurry of activity around what constitutes a demo and what's a review. And he does a great, not surprise. I mean, he's MKBHD, and he does an incredible job of talking about that. So that was what I did. And I actually went back and rewatched his video, and I am liberally stealing from his outline in this conversation today, because he hits all the big topics that I think need to be hit on. Barry says, as we talk, sadly, here. There we go. Look at that. He's almost technical. As we talk about, let's not make sure that we don't send any insults the way the author of this comment. Let's not get personal. I agree. No ad hominem here. It's really, someone hit it right on the nail when they said, can you really not trust someone's opinion? And we're going to talk about opinions as opposed to otherwise. So let's get into this. When I started the channel, I started the channel in earnest in 2018 in the summer. I think that's when I published the first video that got any traction was the one called How Many Guitars Do You Need? That was, of course, me asking myself, how many guitars do you need? And then making up a video that would get me, frankly, to learn how to edit. So I think that was a really important step. And of course, it's a classic sort of YouTube title. I remember Rick telling me that title was going to do well. But this was not discussed then. And it was not, I would say it both wasn't clear when somebody was being sponsored, but also there weren't sponsors. I would say just now we are getting around to the point where companies understand that I get about 450,000 views a month. I mean, I've been doing this for a few years, so it's a lot of back catalog and that kind of stuff. So they're just now starting to understand that sort of advertising here is not like a marketing campaign. And the difference being a marketing campaign where you have a new product come out and then you see it splashed everywhere. And then as opposed to just an ad on the back of a magazine, which just kind of reminds you that, this company is out there and they're available. So I think that's a really interesting point that at one time, this really wasn't the deal that it is now. I will also add that, and this also came out around the time of that original video, there are Federal Trade Commission rules about this. It is legally binding that if you're doing an advertisement, a paid advertisement, you have to say so. If you're being paid to voice an opinion by a manufacturer, it's in people's rights to know that that opinion has been paid for. And I'm completely behind that. I think that the need to be really clear then was reverberated with YouTube in that they added the paid promotion note. We have to check a box when we create a video that says, does this include paid promotion? And that runs right at the top of the video, right at the front. And that's not the ads that YouTube runs. That's where, like in my case, it's TrueFire, which is right at the front and then about halfway through the video as well. So there are Federal Trade Commission rules. And you can, if you just Google that, FTC rules for social media, it comes right up, and it's like kind of like the IRS pages. They make it simple if they want you to adhere, because the other part of it is they're not really enforcing. I don't know of a mechanism where somebody would go around spanking somebody or worse, if they found that you weren't adhering to the FTC guidelines. If they made a stink with YouTube might take your channel down. Anyway, I'm going to say hi to some people here. People apologizing for being late. Well, Otto said I was late. I was maybe 1 minute late. I was running a clip. Pooh Ninja says, trust no one, especially your own preconceptions. Well, that's not something I'm going to deal with today. I'm not going to go that philosophical today. Again, if you have a question for me, as opposed to just sharing with the group, go ahead and throw an @5watt-world in front of it. It'll pop up in orange on the chat, and then I'll know to let it get my attention to the extent that I can do this. I got my script over here, got what I want to say over here, my outline, and then over here is the chat. So there are FTC rules. So how do I do this? And this is why I said, can you trust me? I'll tell you, one of the alternate titles for this video was, is 5-watt world for sale? Or no, 5-watt world is not for sale. But I didn't think that really kind of started a conversation. And I think of titling videos, I've done my definition of clickbait here before. Clickbait is when there's a title of the video that's provocative, but you don't speak about that subject in the video. It's not clickbait when you think of a good way to start a conversation, and that's what titles are. So I went with the title which I thought would start a conversation. Christopher Butler says he noticed that the sponsored thing is not showing up on his videos anymore. I can't speak to that. I don't know. I haven't noticed that. It shows up on mine. When I watch my own videos, it tells me that there's promotion. So let me talk about that. I only work with companies that I decide to approach, which is to say I get emails from companies all the time. That started when I was about probably 75,000 subscribers, like 2.5 years ago. I don't grow very, I haven't had explosive growth. It's very steady, very 75, 150 new subs a day, depending on what's come out recently. So I only reach out to companies. The company that I have as a longest running sponsor, TrueFire, I don't believe had used any other sponsors on YouTube when I approached them with the idea of sponsoring the channel, because I thought that our two missions really lined up. I still do. I love working with the guys at TrueFire. I enjoy working with them. I enjoy coming up with new ways of creating the material. I enjoy taking the courses. I do them every day. Jeff's here. One of the reasons that Jeff and I are friends is because I was doing his courses for years before I ever had a relationship with TrueFire or met Jeff. And we renew that contract about every 5 or 6 months. Matter of fact, I have a meeting on Monday, so that's what it is. Josh Smith says, "Just keep on what you're doing. It's all good. I trust you and your judgment and gear and yours alone. Nothing wrong with anything you're doing." Thanks, man. Anyway, so what I described with TrueFire extends to gear as well. I only look at gear that I'm interested in. If I become interested in something, a new direction that a company is doing, then I reach out to that company, tell them who I am. If they're not aware of the channel, my small little 24 million views that I've had to date. And then I explain to them what I do, and I explain to them why I'm interested and how that might work with the channel. And of course, there's a certain piece of that where they might get some visibility. I reach out to the company and ask. I think that's where that's important to me. It's very important to me that I'm the one doing the approaching. It then makes sure that all the products are in keeping with where I try to have the channel go. Somebody in the comments earlier, I always feel like I'm defending a little bit when in fact, of course, I basically do videos that are interesting to me. They said, where'd the minimalism thing go? The minimalism thing is strong here at the house. I just sold 11 guitars and bought 3. I have guitars that I'm using for projects and they won't stay in the long term. I think if you've been watching the channel any length of time, you'll understand that they won't be here in the long run. Those Collings are really nice. And of course, I have a great relationship with Strandberg. That's another example of something where I was playing the guitars before I really ever had a channel. So that's where gets interesting. I think that the tricky part is that people feel that if you are receiving something from a vendor, you cannot be unbiased. And I'm going to spend a good bit of time talking about that specifically. But let me say that I am very, very picky to use sponsors and what companies. It's not just the product. I have to, with the interactions with the vendor or the company, I have to like what I'm getting from the company. So I'll give you an example. The guys at TrueFire are amazing. They've been fantastic. Work with me. I work with other people that they bring on. I've actually recommended people to them that then they've had a great relationship with. And nothing could be more satisfying than helping, than you sort of paying it forward and helping another creator the way, Rick helped me or Rhett or any of the other people who, helped me early in the channel. So I only use sponsors. I only talk about products, or really am interested in looking at things where I can get both behind the product and the company. I think I had this later in my notes, but it makes more sense here. So for example, and it doesn't have to be a small company. That's where I'm going. I had an HX Stomp and was really learning a lot about HX Stomps before I was ever able to connect with anybody at Line 6, Yamaha, Ampeg. It's this big group. It's a big company. It's a huge company in Japan. I will tell you that company, unlike most other larger companies that I've been dealing with, works really hard to have individual relationships with both musicians and creators. And that's very rare. And it's one of the reasons I really like the company. I have met people from Fractal. I haven't met people from Kemper, but I haven't wanted to because I've been happy with the modeling company that I'm looking at and the kind of direction that's going. Another example of a product that I reached out about was Rev amps. I just think it's really cool that they build these really compact amps that also have the IRs built in from 2Notes, which was, again, a company that I used for a long time. So that's kind of how that works. But there are channels that are run by friends of mine where the majority of their videos are about gear that they receive from the manufacturers. Most often the gear is free to the reviewer, and sometimes there's even an additional payment for the demo/ad, which I think raises 2 questions. And I will tell you that I spoke to both of the people today that I'm going to talk about here and kind of kick this around with them, and they really helped me narrow down how this is going. So the 2 questions are these. Can you be unbiased at all if you got the gear for free? That's question 1. Question 2 is, can you be unbiased if you get paid to demo the item? Let me talk about both of those things. These are both questions of integrity. So that sort of underlies all of what I'm going to say, because there's sort of the practical nature of it. But of course, ultimately, I'm going to talk at the end. Ultimately, you need to decide who you trust. So let me just make sure I'm not missing something in the chat. Telecaster Bear, yes. Freddie Fufu says yes. My old friend Otto says, in my view, it's awesome. Work is detailed, well done, blah, blah. You guys are sweet. You wouldn't be here if you didn't like some of what I do. And other people that are obvious out there. I like that Veronica Phillips is adding other people that they find are really good. So let me talk about a couple of people as I go through this. So to paraphrase MKBHD, I have never and will never accept payment to do a demo of a product or to feature a product on the channel in any way. I have to laugh because actually I had a conversation with the guy at line 6 one time, and I said, "Hey, what would it be worth to like just have one of your amps in the background? You know, these are things I use anyway, so I'm like having it in the background of a big video." And he very gently said to me, "Well, you know, Keith, you're kind of a historian. You know, if you were more of a guitar player on the internet, it would matter more and be worth more. But as it is, it's not really," which is absolutely true. I don't play on here very often, and I have really good friends who play really a lot better than I do. Um, no Step on Snack says, is Yamaha the antithesis of minimalism with all the things they make? Well, having products for a variety of users is a completely different thing. And minimalism, I'll just remind everybody, minimalism free is not having the fewest things. It's having the least things you need to be as creative as you can be. I always use my buddy Rick because Rick and I are really, really old friends. The funny part is when he was a producer, he had fewer guitars than I owned. Now I own way fewer guitars than he owns, but he does a very different job than he did then. So I think that's an interesting point. You always need to remember. A company has very little in common with sort of how much stuff I would have as opposed to how many things they might produce, I think. So so on a practical level, whether I can be unbiased about a gear that I receive for free, I know I am. I am absolutely unbiased about what lands on my doorstep. I have stuff here that I've asked people to send me that I haven't had a chance to get to yet. I will not talk about those things until I have a lot of experience with them. You've heard me say this before. I don't, I'll literally get a product and play it for 4 to 6 months before I'll try to think of a way of integrating it into a video conversation that might be helpful to you. I never lose sight of the fact that I might come just short of saying I work for you because I work on my own and you guys aren't here in the morning when I get to work. But the fact is, I don't lose sight of the fact that I make videos for you. It's funny, early in the channel, I made a couple of videos which I just thought were killer. I thought they were amazing, and they just bombed. And the reason was I sort of had made the perfect video for me. It wasn't a great video for an audience. It was a video that I was really excited about, but only me. And I didn't figure out a way to make it more about you. So we got a lot of stuff in orange over here. Let me see if I can actually get these over here. CHF has a top chat. Thanks, man. Really appreciate it. Or gal. I don't know. CHF. I don't want to be all gender specific needlessly here. See, this is my problem. In StreamYard, where I can add it, it doesn't show that. Well, Jeff is here. So I only endorse stuff that I use and like. My reputation is everything, as is yours. We've been approached by companies that we've turned down. Absolutely true. Constantly, actually, very, very frequently have that happen. So Kevin Berthold says, yes, you can trust Keith's reviews and contents. I don't really do reviews. I talk about things that I think are interesting. And I'll get back over here to the script and I outline and I'll talk about it. Frankie Rodriguez from Spain, from West Spain, says, hey, Keith, there's another way, like the great Greg Koch, who makes reviews of millions of guitars through a third party, Wildwood. In his case, it's definitely bias free, I think. That's a fascinating example because Greg actually works for Wildwood doing all their demos. And I think Greg is just such a lover of guitars, and Wildwood does such cool limited run guitars and stuff. I don't imagine it's very challenging to be excited about that. But Greg's a good example of somebody who's really allied with a specific vendor and he's on their channel. It's not like Greg is reviewing a Wildwood guitar on the Greg Koch channel, which is a separate channel, separate set of business. Robert Nolan says the magazine Travel and Leisure buys every product they review at normal price and gives honest reviews from tons of collected data. Maybe this community should follow suit. I'm going to come back to that. And my buddy Dan Bailey over in Newark, I think some reviews don't review gear that they don't feel they can't get. So you guys are actually jumping ahead of me. So I'm going to try to catch back up. So as I said, I know you can trust me because my opinion is not for sale. This is a job that's kind of grown bigger than I ever thought it would be. It was something I started and it kind of took off. You know, it's one of those be careful what you wish for things. And I'll go back to the fact that I only review pieces that are companies that I'm already interested in. And I gave the example of line 6. Another example, a really good example, and this what you could almost call this collaborative, in that it's a collaborative video if the vendor gets you something before it's available in the marketplace. So for example, PRS did a DGTSE. They were putting out videos about that product that was going to come. I'd had David on the show, thanks to my good friend Jeff making an introduction. And the reality was, it just literally worked out where the slot that I had open for a live stream, I'm like, how about this day? He's like, that's the launch day. I'm like, oh, perfect. Then let's talk about it on launch day. Are you booked? He's like, no, I'm not booked. I already made the videos. They're all done. And so we were able to do that and talk about the guitars. They got me a guitar, I think, 2 weeks earlier than that. I will add that PRS is an interesting company when the way they deal with this. And I don't really think they give away any guitars unless they're to musicians, which I really respect. They don't give me guitars, I'll tell you that. They wanted the guitar back. I wanted to spend more time with it because a lot of you were asking me questions about it. And so they ended up selling me the guitar at an artist price. And I think I said so at the time, that I had been offered an artist price. And basically that's wholesale. I mean, basically what a dealer would pay for the guitar. And then I had it for X length of time longer. And then I sold the guitar for around that price. And the reality is, I kind of think of that as me renting the gear so that I can then do this for you. There's lots of other gear that I actually straight out buy. I bought all those Collings guitars, as I said, right out of my pocket, out of the proceeds of selling the 11 other guitars that I sold at the time. Joe says, what good is a demo or a review if the person plays a different style of gear? I agree. Gear is very personal. And I think this is particularly difficult if you are in an area of the country where it's hard to get your hands on something, or if you're interested in things that aren't regularly stocked. Like I have spent so much time answering questions about Strandbergs, which is cool. I found the Strandbergs at a time in my life where I needed a guitar that was ergonomic, more ergonomic than my DGTs, lighter than my DGTs, et cetera. Very important. John at JL Trem says he trusts me until I do an unboxing video. Yeah, I wouldn't hold my breath for an unboxing video from 5 Watt World. So the David Grissom thing, that was the story that worked out. That was a collaboration to the extent that I was collaborating with the guy who designed it for 5 Watt World by having him here and having his direct information, and by having PRS help have a guitar here before it was generally available in the market. They actually had trouble meeting demand, and I had a guitar here for a while, which other people weren't able to get, but they were waiting to do. One thing I just have to say, and maybe you don't have a sense of this, and I've never done a video like Fluff has done, for example, where I outline how I make a living on the channel. I actually am an old project manager from higher education, and if I didn't have lots of different streams of income, I wouldn't make a living on 5 Watt World. AdSense alone wouldn't cover my mortgage and my car payment. I have sponsorships. I have merch, as you know. I have Patreon, which we talk about, which actually we're coming up on the half of the hour. So that wouldn't do it. Any piece of gear that I've ever received would come nowhere near what I have to charge for an ad spot on a video. If it did, I would be uncomfortable receiving it and for free, and would talk to that vendor about selling it to me. Even if it was at an artist price, I would feel better about having it purchased at what effectively is like a used price. And then my conscience is clear. And finally, it's really important when I get gear for free from a vendor, because I ask them to check it out, I try to tell you, and I will be better about putting that either in the description or making sure that it's in the script to say, I got interested in this. I reached out, they sent me one for free. I think that's really good. Ojo67 says, Phil McKnight does a good job on reviews. He states whether it was sent to him or he bought it. And when he does the deep dives, it is, if it's bad, he says so. And if it's good, he states so too. Yeah. I actually don't watch Phil, but I don't watch a lot of guitar YouTubers. Because frankly, I get more from other people's other styles of videos. I learned more about photography and filmmaking and lighting and stuff from people. It's how I know Otto, actually, because he helped me with my lighting really early in the channel. Let's see. Okay, so that's the first question. That's the question that says, can you be unbiased if you get gear for free? I answered it for me. And again, I think it comes back to, you have to ask yourself, can you trust the person that's there? And you get a sense of that over time. Tad Morrison, hey, some top chat. Thanks, man. I appreciate that very much. Thank you so much. Okay, so number 2, can you trust somebody if they're being paid to demo something? I wrote this whole paragraph up, and then I called Sean Tubbs and I called Fluff, and I read them this paragraph, and they said, well, the problem with the paragraph is that you say review, and I don't really do reviews. They both said the same thing. It was Sean, but then Fluff really hit that home. They demo products, and they do get paid to demo products. But the fact is, they will say that there's a cool feature, but they're not there to say, this is what I like and this is what I don't like. Kind of apropos the earlier comment of like, what Sean's guitar style versus my guitar style, they're so different. I actually wish I had more of Sean's in my playing, but because we like a lot of the same players. But my point is, what works for Sean might not work for me. And I think that both of these guys they're friends of mine. And Jeff's done things where he's demoing something on the channel because he sees lots of different gear, and he finds something and he really likes it, and he'll feature it in a live stream or in a video. So when I reached out to them, I was clear, and I will say now again, it depends on the person doing the demo. But these guys, they do a lot of demos where they get paid to do it, and they only, in the end, they both reminded me that they only, although I said this to them, they only do videos. They'll only make a video about a product they've received that they like. And it's interesting because it's sort of like, well, then you don't have somebody telling you when something's not good. Again, it might be great for you, kind of like any guitar might be great for you and doesn't work for me, etc. I'm not sure that's helpful at all. But when, life is too short, and the life of a channel, even if you put out multiple videos a week, your schedule is too tight to make a video about something that you're really not excited about. So I can tell you that both Sean and Fluff reiterated to me that they only make the video on products that they get, that when they plug it in, it speaks to them. And there's so much good stuff. They can do that and actually, have it be a substantial part of their channel. Like I said, life is too short. And besides, as Jeff said a few minutes ago, if you were out there sounding like you were excited about everything you saw, your credibility goes down. And if they made videos about things they weren't excited about, it would be a waste of their time, and probably more importantly, a waste of your time. But ultimately, it would erode their credibility in a hurry. And somebody said to me once that it takes a long time to get it back. I think in the world of the media that we live in now, you can never get it back. I actually think that's true. I don't think that you can ever regain your audience. And I could give examples, though I don't have to. I'm sure you guys can think of both companies and people who've been online who sort of lost your attention because they lost your faith, basically what it comes down to. They lost your trust. Again, I'm making a note here, a very clear distinction between demo and review. One of the things that's great about the MKBHD video is that he goes long about what is a review and what is a demo, even to the point that he said he names his videos specifically review if it's a full review, and then he's going to tell you what he likes and doesn't like, and he really does those kinds of reviews. That's really important. We got a lot of questions here. Let's see. Let me see if I can get caught up and see which ones we need. I'm going to do these in reverse order. No Step on Snack says, problem with the YouTube demos over things like magazine reviews is that the reviewer can create a false sense of trust with the audience. You think that's not true with a magazine? I actually think that is true with a magazine. Snack. I don't want to be overly informal. I think there's people that I read for years in motorcycle magazines or guitar magazines. I have a sense of Jamie Dixon at Guitarist Magazine, that we both have this longstanding love of John Renbourn. So if if Jamie starts gushing about a particular acoustic guitar as having that kind of sound, then I'm probably going to listen to him. And I do get to see Jamie playing online, but that's not, honestly, I probably know, now I feel like I know him more from Instagram than anything else. Frank Barnwell says, for yourself, Drachfinel, oh, he's naming channels. Gardner Scott, Rick Beato, others. You talk to us, not at us in a lecturing or preaching way. We're in this with you. Well, I like to think that's true because, as I said, I'm not really interested in it. I said in the Strat video, I'm not. This is 5-watt world, not Keith's place. I'm not interested in my own opinion. I know my own opinion. I'm really here to be able to have a higher level of interaction with folks here. Hey, High Watt Steve is here. I haven't seen High Watt in a long time. How you doing, Steve? Steve doesn't live that far away, actually, but he's been a long-standing follower of the channel. Let's see. Let me see if I can get back to some of these other comments and bring them on screen. Here we go. Earlier, you talked about FTC not going after people. In games and PC hardware, they do go after people, and we'll notice people like Fluff follow the rules for games. That's interesting. That's great. And you know what? That probably is a reflection of the volume. If you didn't know, the biggest money in YouTube is in the game area. That's where the majority of the money is made, is in games. So, oh, Robert Nolan says he knows that about Travel and Leisure because his girlfriend works there. The interesting thing is that they're not making noise about it, because that sounds like a very important thing. So, all right, let me go back here. So that's the difference between a review and a demo, and I think that's really important. Actually, let me do my Friends of 5-Watt ad. As I said, today's live stream is brought to you by the Friends of 5-Watt, my support community on Patreon. There's 3 levels of membership. You can do $5, $10, or $50 a month. I actually just yesterday did a phone call with a new $50 a month guy, and I love it when I'm wrong about things. Like, I have a preconceived notion of who people are. This person was a student and like scraped together the money. And I think so we could get together and hang out for an hour on a video call and talk about all the things that they like to do. It was great. And I really enjoy doing those. And I enjoy interacting with everybody. Anybody who is actually already in the Friends of 5-Watt group, you would know that I enjoy, and I'm in there every day. I even have a separate friend's email address, though I'm less good at watching that than I am in the Patreon group. And you probably, as I said, you realize I read all the comments, I read all the email. It's a really important part of this community. And the live hang that I talked about, maybe pulling together we've been talking about doing one-ish as an upstate New York hang for a long time. The chance of being in New York is pretty rare for me, to take time away and do that. There is something on October 16th, trying to get that together. So if you're interested, like I said, reach out to me in an email and some other way. I think that's really important. So again, if you can, go ahead and think about sponsoring me on the Patreon group, and let me know if I keep asking if that's something they want to do separate live streams. People seem to enjoy being a part of the bigger community and just supporting when they can afford to. So if you can afford it, think about it becoming a friend of 5-Watt on Patreon. And there is a link, as Bebe right on cue has it in this chat, but it's also in the group of the video. All right, so let me go back here and keep going to the questions when we can bounce back and forth. It's always a challenge. It's always a juggling thing here. I talked a little bit about this already, but as you probably understand, that as your channel grows, companies start offering you stuff. And I say no to all of it unless it's something that's already in the pipe. There's one exception, and I will own this, although I haven't been able to plug this stuff in yet. The guys at Origin Effects in England follow my channel. I can't tell you why. And they saw that I had bought a Chris Stapleton Princeton, 62 Princeton, a brown panel Princeton. And I bought recently a Sir Ombre. And this is one of those things where in the next 6 months, I plan to make a history of brown panel amps. They're very unique. They're very unique sounding. On top of that, Adam Levy, who's become a friend of mine, told me that his favorite amp to use is a Brown Deluxe. I was like, okay. And I'd heard great things from Psionic Audio about the Sir Ombre, the quality of the circuit, et cetera, et cetera. So I bought 2 of those. And then Origin Effects has a pedal that actually Perry, my script editor, had raved to me about. when it came out based on a 62 or a 61 Deluxe. And so Origin reached out. The fact was, I was going to write to Origin when I got closer to the video and ask them to check out their pedal, because even the Ombre, which is a very reasonably priced all-tube, PCB, but really, really high quality amp, really bulletproof, is about a $1,700 amp. You can get them a little bit cheaper used, but they tend to really hold their value. And just for full transparency, they did sell me one at an artist rate, but companies that size in general can't afford to give somebody an amp. And I will tell you that I remember I talked to Rick probably 4 or 5 times a week. And so I remember when he was producing, and always have, when he was producing, there was this moment when record companies were pulling back. And the reality was that all of a sudden, like the free drum sets to go on tour and amps for free and all that kind of stuff, they kind of disappeared. It just melted. And all of a sudden you were lucky to be asking for artist pricing on things. But again, if a company writes to me and I'm not interested in their product, then I'm just going to say no thanks. And I really appreciate it. Affiliate. Oh, you know what? Yeah, affiliate advertising is something I want to touch on here. This is something that how this works is if you put a link to a product on somebody else's page. Amazon was the biggest one when I started doing this. And I was using a lot of books, I still do, as references, which I think is great, that I'm actually falling all the way back to printed media to do this. So the books themselves were something that I linked to, and I got this little tiny commission when somebody bought a $25 book. I would get like $1.50 or something. It was like 5%. It was a very small number. Don't check my math. I'm terrible at math. So affiliate advertising, but there are ways to do it where the affiliate link can be more substantial, or it's a much more expensive item. So if somebody bought, I remember when Rhett's channel was really young, and he did a video on, I think it was on a Tweed Deluxe, and he sold it, and with the affiliate link at someplace, Sweetwater or someplace, he sold one. And he was like, wow, it was like $50. So I think affiliate advertising is an interesting thing. And we're back to, who do you trust? They're not going to talk about things that they don't like. So if they're only talking about making videos about things they like, then it makes sense that if you decide that that's something you want to try, it makes sense that it would be fine that they would actually get a little something. But I can feel that sort of rub, it's kind of like a sharp 11 kind of a feeling, if you're following me. There's a little bit of a rub about sort of, does somebody want to like things in a different way, if that's the case. And again, I think you're back to deciding who to trust and trusting people. And that's where I'm going to talk about now, is how do you think about who to trust? And MKBHD has an example from the tech world. I actually grabbed an example from our world because I think Fluff does this particularly well. He just did a video about a Schecter guitar this week. So let me just run this for you.
Go any further. This is not a sponsored video. I asked Schecter to simply send me this to show you guys. They did send it to me. However, this isn't a sponsored video and they don't get to see this video before it comes out. They get to see it for the first time along with you guys. All thoughts and opinions are mine.
I think that sums it up perfectly. Fluff's been doing this a long time, and there's things that Fluff does really well. And that's one of them. He's very, very clear about what his relationship is, whether it's Sweetwater that sent it to him, or he got interested in a junior and with a single P90 and he wanted to kind of walk that walk and check it out. Then that's something that he is always right up front with. That was right in the beginning of his recent video. Recent video about that Schecter guitar. So I think that when you find creators who are readily sharing with you what their relationship with the company is, that's a good indicator that they are taking their integrity seriously. They want you to know what they're doing and why it's important. And it's like Salmon's, I don't know if he likes the sharp 11 feeling analogy, or if he does not quite get it. I am right on the edge of my theory knowledge with that. That I barely know that's a Lydian thing. Okay, that's all I know. And I've been hanging out with Beato. Okay, I don't want to do the math. Maybe 30 years. So as I said, I think Fluff does a really good job. Sean does a really good job. They're very clear in all of those things. So kind of to wrap up, man, somebody said early in the video that this was going to be, that they were sensing a rant video. I don't think of it as a rant. I think it's I just wanted you all to know why I think you can trust the stuff I talk about. You're not me. I don't expect you to like everything I like. One of the reasons I'll tell you that the comments section of the Les Paul and the Strat video are pretty rough. That's pretty rough and tumble. Like, I get a lot of, "You idiot. How could you not include Dick Dale?" Dick Dale was never an important guitar player for me, just for me. It's my list. It was my video. Let's not get, how many people watch Buckaroo Banzai? Remember that old movie? There's a moment when he says, hey, let's not be mean. There's no reason to be mean. That's kind of how I am when I'm in my own comment section. I'm like, you're in my living room. You want to be nice, and you can be suggestive, and you can tell me what you love. I love that, but come on, let's everybody be nice. So you can accuse me of being biased. I'm absolutely biased. There's things I like. There's music that has been formative for me. Musicians who, it's funny. I've met a number of famous people in my life for a number of silly reasons. But I also produced jazz shows when I was at Binghamton for about 7 years. I helped the student group that put jazz on, and I met Chick Corea and Branford Marsalis and Pat Metheny. I had dinner with those people. We went to a restaurant, hung out. Joshua Redman. Just people that I really, really admired their work. And so, yeah, I have biases all over the place. I try to be really open about what those biases are. To the extent that your likes line up with mine, that speaks to you. You have to kind of look, and God help you if I'm the only channel you're watching. I hope you're sort of watching people that I also respect and like me. Sassy Cat says that Buckaroo is one of his favorite movies. A Buvito says that his dad was Dick Dale's chauffeur. Why did Dick Dale need a chauffeur? All right. So again, I think that it's really important that everybody understands that I choose topics that are interesting to me. I get all the time. It's interesting. One of the things that came up was Andy Latimer from Camel was a Les Paul player. I loved Camel. That was a huge band for me when I was in college. I don't think they had a broad enough impact to bump somebody else off the list. And of course, I've said it before. There was a big mistake in making a video about 10 Les Paul players when it really wanted to be a 50 list and not reining it back to 20. I learned my lesson. I went to 20 for the next video. Good friends of mine pounded on me about it. Christopher Butler's quoting Buckaroo Banzai. I think the language you're looking for is big bootay. Right there. Now, probably my video is going to get dinged. Let me do some things before I make my final comments here. Let me answer some things. Let me pull it from here. Yeah, I wish it would highlight the questions. Just Playing Bass says he's really enjoying the weeklies. Yeah, the weeklies have been really great for me too. Lognar says the only thing I think is lost from free equipment being reviewed by if they lose the "I paid this much and the quality doesn't match" sort of criticism, at least less completely. That's very interesting. I think that actually I don't know any musicians who have enough money where that's not always there. It's like, wow, I really love this. It's a $600 pedal. There gets a point of here's my economics background sneaking through, diminishing returns. Like the curve starts to get steep, and it's like, yeah, the money's going up, but the value is not increasing tremendously. So I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting that people are skeptical when you don't talk about stuff as much as when you do. Keith, why haven't you ever done a video about these people? Don't you like those people? Like, I make videos that I assume will be watched. I think, to paraphrase an author friend, favorite author of mine, I think I'm justified in wanting to be viewed, as he said, justified in wanting to be read. I think that that's it. Guitar 1952. Yeah, go back to the beginning. I had a comment in my Patreon group that triggered the conversation about being trussed. Tim Chalmers says, but I really love your history videos. Born in 1950, I've lived through a lot of the history, but I admit that I couldn't pay attention to everything as it was all happening. Yeah, I hear you. I totally hear that. All right. Oh, we got 10 minutes left, and I've kind of said everything I've been talking for 45 minutes. God help us. As I said, I choose topics that are interesting to me. And in the end, same as everything else in life, you just have to decide who to trust. I used to do consulting, and I did any number of consulting things where there was a crisis on campus, and they would bring in a group from outside and look at a process. And the processes were almost always good. And I would lead the group, and we'd do a massive study, and we would do it. And the reality was they just trusted the wrong guy or gal. And I think that that's one of the biggest life questions, is having a sense of who you're going to trust. And then Christopher Butler and Steve Truglio, I guess I really triggered something with the Buckaroo Banzai reference. I should have known my audience better. I apologize. I apologize for not knowing you guys. Derived Doom says, as late, always late to the live stream. Hey, I'm right there with you. I appreciate you saying that, because I usually roll into Jeff's 10 minutes late asking, hey, what'd I miss? Keith Cothran, God help me, I would never want to run for office, but I appreciate the implicit note of trust there. All right. So what did I miss, guys? Questions? Do you think Joe Bonassa would like your philosophy around gear? Well, that's really interesting. I always thought Joe was from Utica. I knew he was from New Hartford. I just had never been to New Hartford. So I had a chance. I was over there. I had to go to Utica, to New Hartford, and I went through there. I didn't know that there was a kind of posh neighborhood in Utica in the way there is in Syracuse and Rochester. I don't know why I didn't realize that the world works that way. But I have to say that you got to remember that there was a time in his musician life as well where he didn't have as much gear. Joe, I don't know if you're bidding on the shirt or you're just saying hooray for the shirt. This is the new shirt. This is like the new one I'm breaking in. So this is, of all the denim shirts, this one's gotten the nod to kind of take the place of the other one that's now getting too faded to be as rich on camera as I want. They're not the same. The original shirt is the original shirt. It's just not the same. But thank you for your top chat, Joe. I really appreciate it. I will tell you that when I did the video where we replaced the pickups in the PRS guitar that I did with the guys at Ish, Jay is about my size. So I went in and I had a shirt. I'm like, okay, I actually bought those guys all 5 Watt World shirts because they're going to do another video with me. But I took one of these shirts, and the first question Jay asked was, can I keep the shirt? I'm like, yeah, you can keep that shirt. Yeah, it wasn't like one of the shirts. So it's very funny. Seven Tigers Media says, just watch Billionaire with Rick and the video he just released. And I got to say, they're awesome. They need to reform and release an album of the stuff. I think the thing that's so great about that is that Rick, 2 things. I'll go ahead and tell a secret about Rick. Rick was a producer, and he played other people's guitar parts for years and years and years. And I encouraged him as a friend to go sit in with people. And frankly, I encouraged him to just play guitar, to kind of fall in love with playing guitar again. The thing that lit Rick up for practicing every day again was doing Instagram posts. And he's kind of run the course with that. He does the Mr. Wizard thing where he can hear things that the rest of us don't hear. But the reality is that playing guitar for him was that. The next level that this is him thinking about doing this live. Or I've heard him say a couple of times recently that he's interested in maybe making a record in the studio again, and he's actually reconfiguring the studio. If Ken is in Grand Lanyon, I don't even really know Ken's real name. I think it's Lanyon. If Lanyon is in, then he's pulling the studio together, and I think it would be way cool if he did that, and also made a guitar record. So I think it's great that he's doing the Billionaire thing. Absolutely great. Joe, just playing bass says least gear. Well, like I said, the minimalism thing gets thrown at me often because I guess I have more stuff than they have at their house. And my response to that, as Jeff reminds us, is I do this for a living now. And the stuff that I have here is all stuff that's going in a video. Anything that's here is either my personal gear or something that is driving me towards a video. I'm trying to learn enough to have something to share with you. And that is a constant battle because you guys know so much of yours on your own. Sassy Cat's coming with the top chat with his recommendations. A short history of Dean, Hamer, and VC Rich would be welcomed. You, I trust. Oh, for those, yeah. Well, Hamer has kind of been on the list. Dean would be right in there. I touch on them when I did the video on the Explorer because they were a big part of that time. So I want to see. I'm going to make sure I didn't miss any other questions here as we wrap up. We got just a few minutes left. Joe says that to the guy that wrote to me, we have a failure to communicate. I actually really, really like that guy. And I don't think he's seen my response. And I understand that it's easy to feel in this world, like a lot of people, said, joking or otherwise, it's hard to know who to trust. It's hard to trust people that you've never been in the room with. I make videos with people all over the world now. That I have not been in the room with. And I'm going to try to change that in the next year or so, where I kind of emphasize, I don't know if I've gone, this actually is a rant of mine that you can hear around my house at any time. It just cracks me up that we have a term called IRL, in real life. And we don't have a term for NRL, not real life, when really this is it real? Of course it's real. Is it real life in the same way that like me standing in a bar in Brooklyn, next to Jeff and hanging out and listening to you talk about, why that deluxe didn't work for you, but why the Marshall did? That is a conversation I would enjoy having with anybody here at any time. I think that that is a different level of real life that I would encourage us all to kind of go get. I heard somebody say a long time ago that if your online relationships lead to relationships in the real world, then that's really important. And if they don't lead to relationships in the real world, then you should question how much time you're spending on them. You should be driving towards that all the time. By the way, you guys hear me talk about it. My acoustic jam is meeting at a friend's house this weekend. And then I got an email from him saying, or a text saying, hey, but we were talking about getting together on the 30th as well. What do you think about doing the jam 2 weeks in a row? I don't know if my singing voice will hold out, but I'm like, yeah, end of the summer, Jam Fest. If I can find more opportunities to play music with other people, I'm all over that. And my girlfriend was joking that, doing those has kept me playing and singing. And to which I reminded her that dating her also kept me playing and singing. See, now everybody's going to go, aw. Tim Chalmers says, I think it's great that you've built a small business that allows you to buy and sell gear. My problem is that you're way out of my budget, so I lose interest when you go there. Huh, that's a really good point. I don't have a Strat style guitar. And I have a very difficult relationship with the two big companies because they're not owned by musicians anymore. They're run by some musicians, but they're not owned by musicians. And I don't find them talking to musicians very often. I do like very much some of the people that work for those companies, but I don't know that the companies are listening to present musicians as much as they are listening to their own history, trying to regain that. So I kind of would be more comfortable buying, for example, a Fender Japan guitar that is being built at Dynagaki in, the JD, the current, for a long time that have been built at Dynagaki. Than I would buying a guitar that was built in Corona. This is just me. I'm interested in smaller artisan, craftsman, all that kind of world. That's how I grew up in. My dad was a college art professor. Before that, he was a high school art teacher. I'm from a really small town. I like to know the name of the guy that is cutting the meat at the grocery store. I'm that guy. That's who I want to be. And that's the world I want to live in. So I think that probably informs all of this stuff that I do. And it certainly informs pretty much all of the stuff that I said today about trust and, how do we trust, et cetera. Kane is there. Kane says, ladies love the playing, Keith. Well, Kane is a gigging guy, but I've also met Mrs. Kane, and he seems like a very happy fellow, and he should be. All right. Sir Sneakers Pimp says, Keith, comma, retracted. Oh, we're waiting to hear your question. Sassy Cat says he loves his Fender Japan builds. Fender 1960 CS, you could always grab a K-line from Chris. I could, or I actually had a conversation with John Cordy. I talk to John Cordy about once a week. If you're not watching John, you should be. And it's easy to do because he makes videos every day. I was teasing him because he put his, I don't know how old Elodie is, his daughter, in one of the videos. So I'm like, dude, I can't compete with a little kid, you know? Anyway, he has a K-line that is almost the spec that I would order. But again, it's a really expensive guitar. I kind of wonder if I wouldn't be happy with a Japanese Fender, a Fender Japan guitar, or maybe even a Sire, and kind of realize that it's enough, you know, to dance, put my enough shirt on underneath the denim, and as I wear it when I need to be remind myself, and then, you know, see where we are. That guitar that Fluff just did the review of, the Schecter, I don't know where those are built. My first guess would probably be Indonesia, but I don't know. That's a $900 guitar. That's not a $5,000 guitar. And I play both. I was playing my Fender Japan guitar because I'm working on that video. And I was playing it through the Dumble that I have from the guys at Amplified Nation, and trying to learn about Dumbles while at the same time I'm trying to learn about Fender Japan. All right. Well, I want to encourage everybody to, if you're watching this and we're not live, I want to encourage you to go ahead and put your comments around who you do trust, how you know who to trust online, and especially how you decide who you're resonating with, sort of as people that you're viewing, and how that works. I think it's a really interesting and a really important conversation, or I wouldn't have burned a whole live stream about it. I think it's a really good thing to continue. Otto says, I have a Dumble. I'm coming. It's not a Dumble. It's a Dumble style amplifier. And that's another whole thing. When we do the Dumble video, I'm going to have Taylor Cox, who owns Amplified Nation, on. I have done 2 conversations with Taylor, and I was just, one of the things that put him in that direction was he loves the sort of conversations about alchemy, the sort of mystery of that revolved around the original Dumble circuits and stuff. And I actually I built a 5-watt ODS, or overdrive special, when I was in my 5-watt building craze with Dan Lurie years ago. And Dan has that. That's his basement amp. That's the amp he plays all the time. So, all right. Well, again, thanks to everybody for being here. Thanks for all the love that I'm getting in the chat over here at this point. I really appreciate it. And I hope that I said something that sparked an idea with you today. And like I said, if you're watching this at a later time, go ahead and throw it in the comments. If you can afford it, go think about becoming a friend of 5-watt on Patreon. There's multiple levels. And I want to thank Bebe for moderating, as always. He's the guy, absolutely. And he didn't have to save me very much because I wasn't in the specific area beyond sort of opinion today. So, but thanks for being here. And until next time, I want to thank everybody. I'm going to run that same clip of Jeff playing to play us out. And I'll see you all next week when the Japan video is going to come out. All right, here we go. Take care.